one thing that we are kind of perturbed with the world and specifically our government here in the United States is to, they basically said, well, Israel, since we were able to shoot these down, and other partners were able to, keep people relatively safe with minimal deaths caused by Iran, that you really, really shouldn't respond with any kind of military action inside Iran. And, you think about, Chris, this happening to any other country in the world, even if the U.S., you can use an example, but any other country in the world, if they came under that massive attack and their defenses and their allies' defenses, yes, were that good, they still, I don't think, would just respond with, hey, let's put some sanctions. Now, I know Israel's in a different spot. They're not one of the biggest countries in the world, so we'll leave it to Israeli leaders to decide what's best for Israel. But the idea, the immediate world reaction is, don't hit back.
Exactly. And, I think President Biden put it this way, you got to win, take a win. And, so many nations urging restraint. But as to your point, what other nation would allow 350 drones, missiles, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles to be fired at them? And even though it was a great success, you have to fight back. Jonathan Conricus, we've had him on our show as well. He made the point, the rules of engagement here in the Middle East, if you get hit, especially from somebody else's territory, you've got to hit back. So Israel has to have a response, and it has to be likely on Iranian territory.
Something that's got me upset as an American is seeing so many world leaders, whether it's at the UN or even the U.S. president, basically trying to tell Israel how it should respond to this unprecedented attack by Iran. And I just want you to know that our team at the ACLJ and our supporters at the ACLJ are coming together to make it clear that we believe that Israel should be able to respond the way that you choose, the way that you believe is best to respond to this unprecedented Iranian aggression.
Well, I agree with you completely. We appreciate the support that we receive from different countries. But let me ask you that. Do you really think that if the attack was on London, for example, Prime Minister Sunak would have said the same, show restraint? Or President Macron, if France was under attack from Iran? So I think we should be polite, tell them that we respect their opinion. But at the end of the day, we have to do what's important and for our security. And that's why I don't see any other option only to retaliate to this aggressive, unprecedented attack. And I believe it will happen. I don't think we have any choice.
The Iranian attacks against U.S. forces have stopped. Our presence in Iraq is stable. I emphasize for now because all of that can change. And the Middle East region is quieter today than it has been in 2 decades.
That was in September, by the way. September of 2023,
so
correct?
A month before October 7th. A couple of months before the Houthis start shooting out at the Red Sea and causing major shipping concerns.
And 6 months from
6 months from Iran deciding to cross a major red line and fire directly from Iran into Israel, and the Biden administration trying to sell Israel, well, since the defenses of Israel and the U.S. and some of our partners in the region work so well, just take it as a victory.
If Jake Sullivan was being truthful in that moment, then he obviously either wasn't getting an intelligence briefing, or Avril Haines, our DNI, didn't understand what was happening in the intelligence, because now we're told that the Iranians have been planning it and there was all sorts of chatter. Why didn't our intel know that this was being planned? I see the American intel leaks that are trying to blame this squarely on Israel, but make no mistake, this would be a disaster for the American intel if we knew that October 7th was being planned, or I should say, if we didn't know that October 7th was being planned. That would be a total disaster.
I would say that it's a lot different now in a sense, because we're anticipating Israel's response and then Iran's counter response, with the possibility that this is going to get much, much bigger.
Yeah, I do not think this is a win for Israel. If anything, it's a win for Iran. What this demonstrated was that no matter how effective the Iron Dome is, and the air forces of the British and the Americans and the Israelis and the French are in keeping out 99% of the missiles, a few still got through. It only takes one with a nuclear warhead to wipe out maybe hundreds of thousands of Israelis and do who knows what kind of damage with respect to...
Mike, what we know, this was a test. Did Iran fail most of the tests? Yes. But did they get the answers they wanted? Probably, which is, what do we have to do to get past these Israeli defense forces and their allies so that we could deliver a bigger blow while we get the world to say to Israel, don't shoot back at those military installations that shot off these missiles at you, Israel.
Donald Trump was right to squeeze the Iranians. And we saw when Joe Biden switched the policy and decided to engage with the Iranians. And sometimes engagement works, but I think the evidence had shown that engagement with the Iranians does not work. And yet the Biden administration and Democrats engaged with Iran, gave them sanctions relief, gave them credit and cash to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars, and then we had a war. You shouldn't be surprised when you fund the Islamic radical regime in Tehran that you're going to get terrorism and war. And they did it throughout the whole region. So this is, one of those things that just defies common sense. They took the Houthis off the terrorist watch list. All of these things you've got to ask yourself, Jordan, what was Biden thinking? Because this radical woke left ideology has consequences, and Israel is the first one to realize it.
One thing I would comment is the fact that the attack that Iran had done against Israel was, I believe, a ploy that would lead to a bigger assault in which they're just causing them to expend their weapons and ammunition, and then realizing that the bill is being held up in our Congress that's supposed to supply them and everything. So maybe it's a ploy while they're preparing for a frontal assault that would leave them weakened. We can't hardly do anything because I think Professor Hutchinson already spoke about that we're not in a wartime mode for our ammunition manufacturing.
Listen, I think Ron, you bring up something very interesting, which is that we think that this is listen, it's a victory for Israeli defenses and for the region that they were able to stop mass casualties from occurring from this Iranian attack. That is great. It's wonderful. At the same time, to prevent those mass casualties cost billions of dollars of military equipment spent, like you said, and resources. You've got to then replenish those resources immediately because Iran could do this at a moment's notice. Yet again, it's a much bigger country than Israel. So you've got to make sure that Israeli funding, which now Speaker Johnson has got separately, will be voted on. So it won't be voted on together with Ukraine. So hopefully that makes its way through the House and the Senate and gets bipartisan support so that Israel can begin to rebuild the weapons it needs to make sure that the Iron Dome and David's Arrow and these other devices that were utilized to protect Israeli citizens, that they are replenished. Because I think you're absolutely right. One of the victories of these terror groups is to deplete your resources. It's to tire your people out, deplete your resources, and for people to think of you as a dangerous place in the world, Logan. Yep. Like you just said, Israel is a major economic power. Israel is a major tourist power. Right now, it's hard to think of Israel as either of those because of what's happened on October 7th and what happened this weekend.